Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Martin Dreyfus Show. Welcome back to our continued coverage of the Russia and Ukraine crisis. Now, I typically don't go to news outlets for their opinions about Putin's invasion. However, this interview is with a four-star United States general, or an ex-one, so his opinion on the invasion does hold weight. So without further ado, here's General Barry, or ex-General Barry McCaffrey, and his opinions on Putin's invasion of Russia.
Retired four-star General Barry McCaffrey now, NBC News military analyst. General, this convoy headed toward Kyiv stalled. They tell us again. They say, they're running out of gas, they're running out of food. Maybe they're just regrouping. In any case, what does it mean for Ukraine's military strategy going forward?
First of all, I didn't even know that the Russian troops are constantly running out of food and running out of fuel. That starts to discredit the theory that Putin's military operation was well planned.
It's simply an astonishing situation. I've never seen anything like it. They put 200,000 troops on an operational level of war into Ukraine, and they've turned their major attack, an armored movement to contact to seize Kyiv, it's turned into a parking lot, 3-4 vehicles wide. There's no return lane open. Now they're running out of gas, apparently food problems, abandoned vehicles on the side of the road, no track recovery process going on. They really balled it up. And
they screwed it. They fumbled the bag, as kids our age would say. They had an entire country invasion in their hands. A way stronger military, a way bigger country, way better economy. And you're running out of gas and you're stalling out? You didn't think about how much gas you might need for a week?
At the head of that column, they've got these brave Ukrainians fighting. I don't think it's a strategic pause. I think they've lost control of their invasion.
In the early going, General, we got these reports that they came in from so many areas that Ukrainians sat back and waited. And when this convoy got to the end of it, where normally there'd be suppliers and people to feed them and gas trucks and the rest, they might have cut the back end off and really stopped the forward progress. That's a single pivot. Do you see another pivot coming on the part of the Russians? And what do you think that might look like?
Well, look, if you screw up a company moving to contact, a captain can unscrew it in 2 hours. If you screw up a invasion of a country, I think it's take them several days to figure out how to do this. They're not in assembly areas. They didn't pull off the road and go into camouflage nets. These people looks like an NFL parking lot. So again, I think it's a loss of operational control.
That's insane to think about. Their Russian convoy, all their armored vehicles, their tanks, everything that they were bringing to take down Kyiv, retake the political regime, is stuck in a spot. They can't move it. They can't push the vehicles away. They're just open for being bombed. And they're just stuck there. All those vehicles can be bombed. And if the general's saying it's going to take a few days for them to figure it out, which is realistic as you're, managing 3 separate sides of an attack and countless different, troops to move around and place properly all around the country, a couple days is, going to be kind of still slapped together, if you will. So to think that Putin played this as he was smart, he was doing a military operation, he was going to come in and quote-unquote liberate these people, which obviously wasn't the case. No one even believed it was the case. And you failed. You weren't even that prepared. You were way less prepared than any of us gave Putin credit for.
It's also obviously a comment on the courage of the Ukrainians who are prepared to fight to defend their country. But, Shep, you cannot defend Kyiv from the perimeter. So if the Russians want to seize Kiev, then the Ukrainian defense forces have to fall back into the city and fight out of the houses. If they do, they'll devour lots of Russian infantry. And the city will also get knocked down. There'll be huge civilian casualties. So The next 72 hours or so will be crucial. What will the Russians try and do? And will the Ukrainians fight block to block, yes or no?
We've long
As this all unfolds, it's becoming slower. It's not these rapid stories, 12 a day of this happening, this happening. It's becoming more strategic, more played out. The UN takes a few days to make these decisions. Now Russia's got to take a few days, regroup, figure things out, and it gives Ukraine time to think. It's watching, it's waiting, it's anticipation, and most importantly, it's it's seeing what the results are going to be. Right now, this gives Ukraine an advantage. Russia still is a superior force. We cannot discredit that. But the Ukrainians are on their home turf, and time again, we've seen that that's an advantage. So I will be watching closely, as I hope you guys continue to watch closely over the next 72 hours, and I will give you the most important information that comes out. I won't just give you fillers.
long talked about Putin as the bear or Russia as the bear going back before I was born. You corner a bear. You just wonder if they've game planned a worst case scenario that they certainly want to avoid and what that might look like. Thoughts?
He didn't think through this very well. The test planning process must be deeply flawed. He's ended up with NATO brought together in the most dramatic fashion in 30 years. I mean, Germany, for God's sakes, was disarmed itself 15 years ago. They just announced they're doubling their defense budget in the coming year. So Mr. Putin's in a strategic disaster. I don't see how he backs out. And the more he fights, the worse it's going to be for Russia in terms of economic sanctions and the 200 other negative impacts on the country.
One man is destroying an entire country. One man is watching the world's economy crumble because he really didn't plan this through. And what the anchor was highlighting is, that worst case scenario is potentially nuclear war. And what the general is highlighting is that the process that is flawed is probably because everyone's a yes man for Vladimir Putin. No one's saying, well, this might not work. And typically, if they do, there's probably going to jail. They're probably either going to jail, being beaten, murdered. We don't know. But the way that they treat their citizens, one would likely believe that somebody who disagrees with the dictator Vladimir Putin would probably be considered a traitor. So he doesn't have a process. His process is his brain. And his advisor saying, yes, your brain is correct. So, of course, his process is flawed.
They just stripped Mr. Putin of his honorary president of the Jiu-Jitsu Society. So it's a tough situation for him.
General McCaffrey, thanks so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
So overall, Barry McCaffrey outlined that Vladimir Putin didn't think this through. The invasion is out of control. 72 hours is kind of the determining mark of what's going to happen, especially the hours leading up to that 72nd hour. And he doesn't believe that Russia can back out. I understand where he's coming from with that, because if he backs out, he's just going to be facing war crimes. However, I don't know how much further he can go and fail, because something's got to give at some point. But there's been 12-year wars, there's been 100-year wars. We don't know when that giving point is, in all fairness.